I was appointed, I wanted to do it again, and I never got a chance. Now, I tell my clients about that solution. Nobody else has ever tried such a thing. But it gives them ideas of what to do different. You know, the sense of humor and the sense of whimsy is such a gift, which gets buried under our anger and frustration. You know? But frustration is just not knowing what to do instead. That's when you get frustrated, and that's when you get so mad at that other person. It's not that they're terrible awful, it's that you don't know how to handle them, and they're in charge of you, or so it feels. Another school story. I love this story. The kid, it's about 7th and 8th grade girls, so now they're using lipstick and makeup. And the janitor complained to the principal because the girls would put on their lipstick and then they'd go to the mirrors in the girls' restroom and they'd blot their lips on the mirrors. So the mirrors had all these lipstick stains, which is not very easy to get off. And they were telling the girls to quit doing it, but what were they going to do? They could sort of stand guard in the bathroom. Not a good use of, management time. Here's what they did to solve such a problem. They brought all the girls into the bathroom, the principal did, with the janitor, and said to them, see all these marks on the mirror? They are really hard to get off. And turned to the janitor, and so we'd like you to not do it. Now, doesn't that sound like more of the same? And then he said to the janitor, show them how hard it is. The janitor took his mop, dipped it in the toilet water, and proceeded. Guess what never happened again in that school? One more story. It's about my mother in terms of the power of this model that just blew me away. My mother has dementia. She's at the stage where she doesn't recognize me or anybody else and is in a wheelchair now, although she can walk some. At the stage I'm talking about, she could walk some, but that you had to ask her, beg her, make her get out of the wheelchair, and they were trying to keep her as mobile as possible. Well, you can't use brief therapy on somebody that doesn't have a mind that functions, can you? I'm on one side, and the caretaker, Flor, is on the other, and we're saying, come on, Mom. Come on, Dorothy, you can get up. And we'd take her arms and she'd go like this and fall back down into the wheelchair. So we would try again. Come on, Mom. We just wanted her to walk a little few steps just to keep her legs functioning. Come on, Mom. And we'd take her arms and she'd go like this. And I thought, well, all right. And then Flor says, okay, Dorothy, you're not going to walk today. And my mother got that look, I remember. By God, and up she goes, pushing herself out of the wheelchair. And we had to move to grab her arms to help her, and she walked the length of the hallway. It can't work. Brief therapy can't work in such a situation. And there it did. It was neat. Now, one of the thoughts I want to leave you with, and then I'll take some questions. We've got a few minutes for questions, I think. Jean-Paul Sartre has a great line for me, which is, freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. And I think that's what we do for our clients. Questions? Now you all know how to be therapy consultants. Go ahead. I saw Hank. Let me mention, in a crass capitalistic way, if you want, let me tell you what's in this book. It's out there if you'd like to buy it. I'd be more than happy to autograph it for you. It's my translation into just plain English about how to define the problem. And what I did was, the years that I was at brief therapy, I kept looking at all the things people did other than tell you what the problem was. And then I also added kind of a little bit from business models about how to define the problem. And so I've defined it in terms of, these are the typical mistakes people make when they're figuring out who is doing what to whom. And I've got them with a lot of examples. And then I go into part 2 and give you examples, again in the business world and some in the family world. And then to part 3, the typical mistakes people make, and so on. Anyway, it's there, available. There's also a couple of audio tapes out there if you want. What it is somebody asked me, can I, in 35 to 40 minutes, explain the whole brief therapy model? And I said, sure, try me. And so that's what that tape is. One tape has a brief 5-minute interview of me about business and the business world today. And then I move into and again, I go through step 1, 2, and 3 in brief. So if you need a brief way to tell somebody else, you can steal my ideas off the tape. The other tape doesn't have the intro 5, 6, 7 questions of interview. That's the only difference between the 2 tapes. And you're more than welcome to buy them. I'm through. Thank you for your time.
What's the label on the tape that has the intro?
It's the yellow one.
It looks like it.
Thanks.
Very good, Lucy.
Thank you.
You were yesterday at my presentation? No.
Pardon?
You were not yesterday at my presentation? No. You were not.
I'm not.
You were not yesterday.
Again, day before yesterday, late, Michael Rohrbach, who was supposed to be making a presentation at the same time that this presentation is happening, called me from Tucson, Arizona, where he lives, and he let me know that he couldn't make it. Something had come up at the last minute, and he just wasn't able to make it. So, unfortunately, the alternative really was an illusion. that you had before you, to either have Michael as a presenter, which would have occurred in one room, or Gianfranco and myself as presenters in the other room. Another last moment event that occurred was Gary Lane. Our Gianfranco and Gary and I have been working together in a very strange international way, really, for probably more than 10 years, maybe 12. And Gary Lane was supposed to also be here with us. We were going to talk about the work that we've been doing kind of at a distance, where we get together sporadically all over, wherever we happen to be on the face of the earth, where the three of us could get together. And we talk, and we ended up doing some writing together. And Gary was going to be with us also, but then he had his boy had some difficulties, health problems, that resulted in him in the last minute having to not be able to be here. Everything's fine, everyone's healthy, but unfortunately our colleague who we typically work with together, Gary Lane, is not here either. So that's the situation. Michael Rohrbach once is not able to make it, and that forces you to be in this room with us. So there it is, Gary Lane, Gianfranco and I that'll be making a presentation, and you'll find out what it's about as we tell you. I'm not, okay.
Immediately, let me speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Now, let me introduce. And so now, Gianfranco Cecchin.
Stand up so you can see me better. Okay.
Now you should have more flexibility.
So I can perhaps tell you a little bit about the story of this Milan center I belong to. First, I want to say where I am now, personally. I work in Milano. I do No, we have a center for family therapy, training center. So I spend most of the days with some students. We have different students every day for 2 weeks. And with the students, we look at some families who come there. The students are behind the mirror. Sometimes I'm behind the mirror and the students see the family. And we keep seeing families and meeting together and talking about it. So the big problem is, the big style is looking at family and talking about it. We spend more time talking about it than looking at the family sometimes. So talking to the colleagues is more fun sometimes than talking to the family. So I realize that sometimes I see some families alone now without colleagues, and I miss it. I realize they became addicted to this talking and then talking about it. So it became one of the style of our school, to do something and then making comments, which is part of also we do within therapy. People do things and then we make them talk about it. So people do things and talk. Do and talk. The two things go together. You cannot do something without talking about it. And we cannot talk about something without having consequences in doing. So we started this activity 25 years ago, more, when we met in Milan. I met with Salvini, Boscolo, and Prata, and Salvini was saying, we must try the model, the Palo Alto model. What is a Palo Alto model? No ideas whatsoever at that time, because we are coming from psychoanalysis and psychiatry. So we got together. We were a very big group of people, 8 people, trying to do family therapy, because family therapy was becoming popular in the United States, in California, and so why we cannot do it too, right? If they do it in the United States, we must do it too. That's part of the dependency of European. And then we started to do it, and then these 8 people, we had big discussions. Many people came from psychoanalysis. They were severe psychoanalytically trained. So it was difficult to have a conversation. We tried to read the books that Salvini brought to us. One gospel was Pragmatics of Human Communication, of Paul Václavic. So it was a basic book. And we had big discussions to the point that there was a moment where we said we cannot work together anymore. Too many conflicts. So we had a big meeting, and these people who had done psychoanalysis for years, they said, we don't want to change the model. It's too complicated. We don't understand it. And also, we spend so much money to become psychoanalysts. And now we want to throw away everything. Václavic was talking about 10 session therapy. No, unbelievable. Therapy should be endless, 3-4 years. 10 sessions. Even people who cannot pay, you see them anyway, so it's impossible. So we had a big discussion, so we separated. So the group became Salvini, myself, Boscolo, Prata. The other people left. So we started the group, and we said, let's try now the model, Palo Alto model. And we studied, we tried to do it. The first problem was how to change the language, because we were only looking for diagnosis, intention, what is behind it, what is the reason, what is the cause. So how can we change the language? The first thing was let's eliminate the verb to be. Never say somebody is depressed. We change the language. If somebody, this mother is depressed, change the language. What does it mean? So she behaves depressed in front of her husband, or she becomes depressed when her husband comes home, or she becomes happy when her husband leaves. I mean, So I always relate to, we came out, if you eliminate the verb to be, always another person comes up. No? Or I perceive the person as depressed. So you are there, no? Depression, and you watching. So if you eliminate the verb to be, another person appears. No? So we got already into a relational model. First thing was change the verb to be. Then the other was how can you, describe what people are doing without going into diagnostic categories. No? How to eliminate diagnosis. And so we try to describe how people behave. Like schizophrenia is the behavior, it's not the diagnosis, no? It's a way to behave. Then we find out there are many ways to be schizophrenic. You can be an artistic schizophrenic. No? You know how to be schizophrenic. I remember we saw a case, he said, am I schizophrenic? They told me I'm schizophrenic. I said, no, but you know how to behave as a schizophrenic perfectly. No? You are an artist in performing schizophrenia. You are brilliant. No? And you do it very well, and you can convince any psychiatrist all over Italy that you are schizophrenic. If you want to convince them, if you want a salary out of it, no, you can be paid with disability pension. You can do that. No? You can perform it very well. But we try to look for something else. So we went on. The first question was not to have many people interfering, with other ideas, the classical, linear ideas. And so we said that we cannot talk to people, because when we talk to people, we get confused. No? All the psychoanalysts, people with different ideas. And so we said, let's work in isolation. It was a crazy idea, but let's spend a couple of years just talking to each other, to the family. 3 days a week we saw families. The other days we saw families, psychoanalytic model to killing. Family, so we went on. We get to a point when some people from Rome, Andolfi, he said, we would like to come to visit what you are doing. No? And Salvini said, we can invite them because they talk. If they come, they talk. No? So she said, on the phone, she said, you can come with all the people you want, but with a prohibition to speak. Can you come and not talk? And they said, okay. So they came and they were totally silent. And then it was noontime to go to lunch. Said, let's go to the restaurant talking. And she said, no, we have to go to 2 different restaurants. No, because if you go to a restaurant, we talk. So we spent 3 days without any communication. Not to get influenced. No? So it was a kind of a psychotic group. No? We just had a fixed idea that we have to follow this model. So we work. After 2-3 years, we got fed up. We felt sure enough, no, to take a risk to listen to other people. We kept reading and something. So we went on, and during that period, we wrote a book on paradox and counter-paradox. No, that they came out very nicely, and people began to read it. No? And many psychiatrists, many students, they began to call and say, we would like to learn your model. No? And they said, what can we do now? He said, there were especially people who came from this Italian revolution, Basaglia revolution, who was on the leftist party. He wanted to demolish the mental hospital. No? The mental hospital was the one who creates the problem. No? This was a theory. And so they were coming from that experience. They say, now we liberated the patient from the state, but now we don't know what to do with the patients. No? And then probably you have something to do. Probably you have an idea. No? So we come there. So Salvini said immediately, no, we don't want to have any students here. No. Because he said, we work only with family. Students are worse than family members. They call you all the time. They want instruction. They want papers. They want the signatures. They're a pain in the neck. No? I don't want any students here in this place. And so Bosco and myself, we said, that's ridiculous. We need also some money here, not to live, no? Not just to see family. So why not to see students? It's nice to see students too. So Bosco and myself created a school. So people began to come. 12 people from Bologna, Modena were at these areas. So they came. It was interesting that we kept telling them the game of the family playing the game, and the symptom is part of the game. It's necessary to keep the system together, no? To keep the homeostatic system. Always talking about the family, the organization, the relatives, and grandmother and grandfather and children. And they kept asking us, why did you ask that question? No? Asking, why did you move that way? Why did you laugh now in front of this child? Why did you leave the room now? Why do you kick the child out at this moment? They kept asking about our behavior. No? What's your behavior? They didn't care about the behavior of the families. No? We were fascinated by the crazy families. They were fascinated by the crazy therapies. So they compel us to watch what are we doing. You know? And so we began to examine what we are doing. So we came out also with a nice article. The Salvini participated, the circularity, neutrality, and hypotization. No? And there we found out that we ask circular questions. No? We call them circular questions, which means never ask directly a person, what do you think? You ask another person, what do you think he thinks? It's only circularity. Well, what does your father do when your mother becomes sad? No? When your daughter doesn't eat, is anorectic. No? What does your grandfather do? No? You never ask the grandfather, what do you do when your daughter is there? No? You ask somebody else, what is he doing? Always asking, we call it the gossip in presence. No? Talk about, and that's interesting because slowly we found out that with circular question you can ask almost any kind of question. There's no question that you cannot ask. No? It's forbidden. It's too dangerous to ask. You can always ask almost any question, no? About sex, about violence, about anything you want to talk about. No? So that's very interesting. This circular question remains the basis, no, still now, of this kind of teaching, no, how to learn how to ask circular questions. Also based on the idea that every person exists, I tell the student all the time, no person exists if nobody sees the person. The person exists if somebody sees the person. If nobody sees that person, the person does not exist. The human being does not exist if somebody else is not there to watch it, to see, to define the person. If you are a child, you are alive because your mother can see you when you are born. She smiles at you or something. If she is not there, probably you die in a few weeks. No? You don't exist. So every person we see, we always ask the question, who are the people who sees the person? No? Who are the significant people that make sense out of this life? No? So that's why the circular question makes sense. You ask somebody else, how do you see that person? If you ask the person, how do you see yourself, you get no answer whatsoever. Or you get very stupid answers. No? Very superficial. I am an artist. I am an intelligent person. I am a stupid person. Means nothing. No? If you ask a little daughter of 4 years old, she can tell you more. Even a couple, what kind of couple are you? Nobody tells you the truth. Right? They always tell you something, fantasy they have. If you ask a little child, how do you see your parents as a couple? They give you a good answer. No? It's useful. So you exist as long as somebody else sees you. No? So this was one of the basic. The other is hypotization. No? We found out that we enter a case always with some ideas in our head. No? We always have an idea. We have an hypothesis. We call it hypothesis. Then later on we try to change the word because hypothesis is too scientific. It looks like there's a true explanation of what happened. No? Scientific hypothesis. Instead, it's a fantasy about what is going on. No? Even when you receive a telephone call, from the voice of the person who calls you, you already have a fantasy about what kind of person that person is. No? You already have an idea, already have an hypothesis, and a fantasy about what is going on. So we found out that we need always an hypothesis, a fantasy about the case. No? We found out that if you have no ideas whatsoever, you say, I don't want to know anything about the family. I have no idea. Then usually you buy the idea that the family brings you. Then you follow their ideas. You agree with them, so you're not useful at all. The opposite is when you have an idea already fixed, you go in, you try to impose it on the patient, not listening to them. That's another story. So you become violent in that direction. So the hypotization. Neutrality was another attitude we had, which neutrality meant simply, most people come to you, they always try to tell, my husband is doing something wrong, no? My grandmother is interfering with the life, the children interfering with other life. They always the fault of somebody else, basically. So to be neutral is to bring the conversation to another level. We're interested in the interaction, not who is right, who is wrong, who is the victim, who is the violent person. No? We're not interested. What interaction do you have? No? Can we give a different name? Okay, these are the basic principles. There, we went home many years. I met with Wendel and Gary. And we began to discuss about this position of the therapist when he enters a family. We call it the prejudice of the therapist. What kind of prejudices do you have? We call the word prejudice because to give more emphasis, we can say assumptions. We can say something more mild. Prejudice is more negative somehow, because I know prejudice is something that you are loyal to, you believe into it. It goes against the truth, against the evidence. So we went to look into what kind of prejudices are we having all the time about cases, which is very important. The prejudice come from a group, like the Milan school, as a prejudice. We think everything is circular. That's a prejudice. The psychoanalytic school, they have another prejudice. They think everything comes from the past. Every school, they have their own strong prejudices. Some school, they have a prejudice that everything happens because of lack of love or something. All the problems is love. Love is missing. That's a prejudice. That's interesting. Every therapist who enters, you can read his prejudice or her prejudice in a few minutes. What ideas do you bring into the system? It is fascinating to see how this prejudice gets interact with the prejudice of the family. You get this kind of battle interaction. And here we invented the word irreverence. You want to say something about it?
No, you go ahead. You're doing well.
Okay.
I'll say something.
Another prejudice. You're doing well.
Yes.
You're on a roll, buddy. Keep going.
So it was fascinating, the idea, what kind of prejudice do you have when you enter? It is impossible not to have one. Depends on the school you come from. Right? For example, if you come from, say, the school of a hierarchy, we believe in hierarchy, then you think that all the problems come because there is a disturbance in hierarchical system. And then when you have this prejudice, you see it everywhere. Right? One problem we have, that every time we have a prejudice, we can see what we want to see all the time. No? So all the problems, so you see triangulation all the time, you see hierarchical problems. If you have a theory that all life of the family, all problems of the family come from mourning difficulties, people are mourning something, they lost something. In every family you see something. They lost somebody recently, a relative. Somebody divorced, a child left home. Somebody got married, somebody died. You see, in every family there is something to lose, to mourn. You can mourn, somebody got married, he's mourning his state of singleness. He's mourning, well, I was single, I was happy, now I'm married. They lost something too. Or now I married this woman, I give up the other one. That's a mourning. So it's
Only in Italy.
any action, only in Italy. In any action there can be a mourning phenomenon. something missing. So if you have this prejudice in your head, you see it everywhere. No? The other is love. These people are being mistreated by their parents as children. It's very common. Most first-year students, they believe that idea, strangely enough. No? More primitive you are as a student, the more you believe in that idea. No? Your parents don't love enough, don't love the children enough. No? That's a very strong prejudice. And there you can see it all the time. This person is suffering because mother didn't love him enough. No? That's a strong prejudice that no solution to that problem whatsoever, no? Because it happened in the past. No? So it's fascinating to see what kind of prejudice do you have in your head when you enter a system. So what we try in the school, try to sell, what are the systemic prejudices? No? Palo Alto prejudices. Because we are coming, it is impossible not to have a prejudice. That's very important. Huh? It's impossible to be neutral, like we thought we can be detached. No? You always have some idea. So which ideas are we trying to put in the head of these clients, these students? No? One simple idea is there are two possibilities when you see a family, a person, a client, a company. You can choose two roads. No? To look at what is wrong with it, or looking for what is right. No? If you look at what is wrong, you follow the traditional medical model. Somebody comes to you, you say, what's wrong with your heart? What's wrong with your legs? No? Something wrong. You try to cure it. If you see a family, you ask yourself, what is wrong? What is the problem? No? What is wrong with you? The problem means there's something wrong. Problem, the word is wrong. That's one thing that we have to discuss later. For me, problem is good, not wrong. But if you look for what is wrong, then first thing you have to have an idea of what is right. No? Otherwise, how do you know what's wrong? So you must have an idea what is a good family, what is a healthy family. No? You have to have an idea what is a healthy couple. No? How do you know? You usually are a therapist always behind the culture. No? A couple, let's say, in Sweden or a couple in Buenos Aires, they have different behaviors. No? They behave according to the culture. No? And therapists, they belong to their culture. Usually they are behind the movement of the culture. No? Families, like how do you behave like a child? You know how to behave like a child? So you must have a model, so you become an expert about how life is. No? Then if you are an expert, the consequence is that very soon, without knowing, you become a teacher. No? You try to teach people how to behave. No? You should do that. You should be a mother. A child should be like that. A father should behave that way. Or even worse, you become a moralist. No? You begin to say what you're doing is wrong. No? You should do something different. No? So you become an expert, a teacher, and a moralist. The three categories the human beings hate the most, right? When you meet a moralist, a teacher, or an expert, people usually get away. No? Clients.
Now I'm ready to say something.
This is what so attracted me to Gianfranco in the '80s when we started talking to one another with Gary Lane in Atlanta, principally, was this whole idea of what Gianfranco was saying is true. This tendency to go into looking for right and wrong, and then ended up being a moralist and a teacher, which is we were trying to avoid. But if you remember, at that time in our field, there was a great debate occurring where Harry Galushin and these other folks in Houston, and I think this was right about time Michael White started coming on the scene, and there was this great it was like this revolt, this reaction against strategic and the MRI model, and we're in the middle of all of this thinking, wait a minute, we like these are our friends, these are good ideas, and at the same time we like these new ideas, and that's where this notion of irreverence started coming up, Because we were saying, why should we have our hands tied behind our back and not be able to avail ourselves of very good ideas just because at the moment the popular, which is a good thing because we're not against the new things, says thou shalt not, you see? So this was a very important point, and this is at the time, it just so happened in the 80s, beginning in the early 80s, in Atlanta, Gary and Gianfranco and I just really would like to sit around and drink cognac and smoke cigars if you want to know the truth of it. These were the conversations we would have, and that's where I got excited, because I was, at the same time, had my other foot over here in Palo Alto, hanging out with these folks, and anyway, that was the thing that brought this idea of prejudices and the strength and the power of the prejudices of everybody, including the therapists. We're not immune, we have biases and points of view, and the danger is when you act like you don't have one, and then you're imposing that on people and you don't even realize it. And then we got involved in this interesting, to me, interesting idea of the interplay of the prejudices of the people involved in the family or client, whatever the word is that you're more comfortable with, and us, and the interplay of those biases and prejudices, and out of that, and then feeling the freedom that came for me anyway. The three of us, we wrote some articles together, stuff, where we said we don't have to be bound by this. We can be irreverent to everything. If we want to be a directive person, we can be directive. If we want to think in terms of hierarchy in a certain situation and it's useful, we could do that. But we don't have to, That's what I wanted to say.
Also, the consequences of the other solution, like looking for what is right, what is right with the system, it changes all the mentality. So you ask different questions. How come this system is there now? Why this couple who fight against each other so terribly, they tell each other terrible things, how come they're still together? What keeps them together? What is the quality that makes them going? They hit each other, they hate each other, they almost kill each other. And then you said, how come they're still alive? You ask a different question. How come they didn't divorce? And sometimes you begin to have a different attitude. You begin to say, how do you do it? Somebody is so very depressed, a terrible story happening in his life, and this person is still there. And then you say, how do you do it? Then you begin to change. They become your teacher. You said, how do you do it? How come you're so good? I wouldn't be able to do it in your position. So you reach a level of respect, of admiration for the people. Even multi-problematic families, so-called. They have so many problems: drug addiction, prostitution, money problem, jail. Everybody is involved in some difficulty. And then you said, what keeps you together? What keeps you as a family? How come you came here today all together? Where do you find the money to come here? So you become an admirer of what they're doing. And then what we found out years ago, that the positive connotation of what is going on usually has a big power to unblock a system, to make a system alive. If you show you keep abusing your wife so terribly, because you are angry, you don't want her to be there, you don't want to be the way you don't like the way she behaves. And then you said, when did you put her in such a pedestal in your life? What do you mean? Why you put her in such a position that you expect from her all these fantastic things that she cannot give you? When you put her there, how did it happen to you? You put her there like it's Le Madonna or something, that you have to beat her up every day because it's not the way you want her to be. What's happening? When this great love for your wife came up? That's very surprising. That you have to go through this danger of being also going to jail by being so violent to your wife. If you're able to send these messages, usually there is a change. Because you change the connotation of violence into something different, a different description, which is more positive. So the positive connotation is tremendous power. So if you look at what is right, then you find out how fantastic people are in doing what they are doing. You know? They are not. They always at the limit of survival, and so you become a learner. No? I'm here to learn from you. How do you do it? How do you handle it? No? And then you said probably the fact that your child now is sick. No? Probably is very important now. Probably by having the child being sick made you come here. So now we can talk about these things. So your child did the right thing to come here as a sick person. Your child understands very well what's going on. And then he should not improve for the moment. Or perhaps you can improve if you are sure that your parent can come here anyway. If your parent promised to come here, then you can get better if you want to.
Oh my God.
Just-
You can only keep coming here. What? Oh God.
You can only improve if they promise
If they promise to come.
Yeah.
So you prohibit him. That's
Prohibit.
magnificent.
Yeah. Don't get better because the danger is your parents give up coming, but they have to come because it's very important for them. No, because they have so many trouble in life. No, and for you now, no, you are the representative of the problem. No, so keep the problem alive. I'm not so sure if your parent will come if you don't have a problem yet. I mean, I don't think they are so mature like you are. No, you're more mature than your parents, so you know what you're doing. So it's very important you keep doing it. So they are very shocked. No, if you talk like that, of course. No. They still, in the same way, you give a positive connotation of the whole event. No, the sickness, no, the problem that they have to solve the problem. That there is a drama in their life. The drama is very serious. And you take it very seriously. And you like it. No, you become a nice spectator of a drama. No, so they become the actors, and you are the spectator. Instead, the opposite position, to be the expert, you are the actor, no? Tell the people what to do. No? So your problem now is very important. Keep it for a while, no? Until we don't understand what is going on. No? You say, but we want to resolve the problem. We want to resolve immediately the problem. You say, look, if you want to resolve the problem, we send you to Nardone. Then Nardone will resolve the problem. But then we have to take care of the consequence. We have an agreement. If you really want to solve a problem, you go to Nardone, he will resolve it. No? But I can see a tremendous danger for you. No? Now, without problem, what happened to you? What happened to you? Look at the consequences. You're lucky that your child created the problem. The family should be lucky, should go there, say thank you to the child, that you are the savior of the family. You know? So be careful. So now we developed this idea that always the idea that be careful. No? What is going on now is the only position, the only thing that can go on. So that's another prejudice I try to sell to students, that the systems are perfect. No? Perfect, even people suffer, they depressed, they are crazy, they do that. But the formality of the system is perfect. You cannot change it. If you change it, the whole thing changes. It's an earthquake. No? So the solution is to help the people to live another level of perfection, no? Where the sickness is not necessary, something like that. No? But the way it is, the sickness is necessary, to be crazy is necessary, to be in such a situation is necessary. It makes a lot of sense for your survival. No?
Are you now moving into eccentricity? Because this is what it sounds. Okay, very good. No. This is another Gary, and the one I loved working with Gianfranco and Gary because we're all three very busy and we live in very different places in the world. And the only way we can get together is by email and letters, and then we make a point of getting together occasionally. So the way these ideas have evolved have been different than any other collaboration I've ever been involved with in my life. It's been wonderful.
we keep jumping from these prejudice to irreverence, and now we're into this notion that we're dealing with now in the book that we're working on, that I hope will be finished in the next month or two. Let me listen, and everyone hates our title, but I love our title. Yeah, thank you. Eccentricity and Persecution in the Therapeutic State, Systemic Defiance and Contemporary Mental Health. That's the name of our book, the new one. Eccentricity and Persecution in the Therapeutic State, Systemic Defiance and Contemporary Mental Health. We think people are, we've been dichotomized into helpers and those who, if you're a helper, you have to have someone who's sick to help. And everything's being shoveled into these dichotomizations where if you do anything that's in at all eccentric, you have to be fixed. And so we want to enter into that. And how do you think about these dichotomizations while really as purely as we know how to do, retaining our loyalty to the systemic biases, because we know these are biases. And so anyway, that's what we're working on now, is this concept of eccentricity and helping eccentrics survive in a world where everybody's trying to make you homogenized. That's all. That's what you were talking about.
Because I do some consultation in some big hospital where they have many clients, chronic patients who they go in the hospital, then they are out, and then they come in again, they go out. So they have 2 social workers, follows them, 2 psychologists, 3 psychiatrists, everybody. They have so many people involved. They have the township, who has to pay for their survival. The people find a home for them. And these people, they are brilliant, these eccentrics, they're brilliant in holding the system in their hands. That's fantastic how they make the right move all the time to get the people they want them to move, right? And so that's why the consultation is a lot of fun. You can see all these people, how do they get involved in that position? To become totally victimized by this eccentric person who is considered a diagnostic category, right? Who is a person. And so people are a little scared. Probably we give some medication. Did you do it? Yeah, you try. We tried many times. What happened? Nothing. Change medication. Nothing happened. The same story. Change for a while. Change a home. Change that. Change that. Everybody tries changes, find solutions all the time. Instead of discussing together about how this brilliant person was able to get all the system under their control, people begin to enjoy it. They begin to find it interesting, and they begin to see solutions. Not immediately. They don't say, let's do that. But they change their attitude towards the person. The attitude becomes an attitude of admiration. How good you are in getting us in that position. And they begin to talk to the person differently. So there some little changes happen sometimes. The attitude, we are the expert, you are the sick person, now we take care of you, is a disastrous story. It is part of the state who's doing that all the time. So to be able to, in some cases, to change attitude towards these kind of persons, there's a tremendous effect. Now we have some cases described there where we can do that. Usually to describe it now. But the main thing is the problem. The Palo Alto tradition is going to fight the problem sometimes. What's the problem? Let's solve the problem. Now we try to go beyond it. He said the problem is necessary for survival of the system. The problem is good. No, we don't want to change it now. Then look at the consequences if you give up the problem. Always talking about the consequences. There are social consequences, health consequences, people around changing the system, relatives coming in, also the therapist changing, therapists getting upset. There are a lot of consequences if the problem disappears. So always talking about consequences. Like one intervention that I like to do often is with couples. Couples who come, usually they come, they're always criticizing each other violently. You're not the man that you should be, you're not the wife you should be different, do that, why you don't do that? You treat the children differently, always criticizing severely each other. It's a classical couple. So what we say to them, we said, look, we have experience here as a therapist. We see that couples, usually they have 3 phases in their life. No? First phase is when they fall in love. And somebody sees in the other, they see everything. They see the mother, the father, the child. They see Jesus Christ. They see what they want to see. No? And they say they are in love. That's a psychotic phase, we call it. No? And usually people don't go into therapy during that phase. No? Then after a little time, a new phase comes in. The idea comes, how come you're not the one I expected you to be? No? How come? Putting a pedestal, now you're not there. And then starts the other phase where you spend time trying to teach the other person to become the way you expect the other person to be. No? Why you're not the wife they expect you to be? Why you're not the husband, the real man they expect you to be? Why you're not the real woman? And you go on. I said that phase, usually people come into therapy. That phase lasts between, I say, 2 years and 35 years. So some people, they are 65 and they're still telling each other what they should do. No? And now you are in that phase, so that's why you can come into therapy. And then they say, the third phase, what is it? The third phase is very unusual. When some people accept the other person the way the other person is, no? And they find interesting what the other person is. The other person is not the person you dreamt during the first period of insanity. It becomes a real person, very interesting. You find it interesting what the other person is. But you're not ready for that phase. No? Also because if you accepted your wife the way she is now, probably she would feel lonely now. The fact you criticize her probably is very necessary for her. And your husband also needs to be criticized all the time, because you're still in that phase that to be criticized for you is love. If she criticizes me, it means she loves me. No? You're still there. It takes a lot of time for you. Come here, probably we see each other once every 2 months, every 3 months. We go on for years. If you die before 35 years, no, I have some colleagues who can take my place. No, we can go on for a long time. So usually it's a very powerful intervention, because when they come, you don't have any all the time to say, okay, did your husband behave the way you expected last week? No. Did he say something? Did you give some prescription? Did he follow? No, they're making fun of this attempt to change the other all the time. Because you are in that phase, the only thing you can do. No? You're stuck. Even if you change wife or change husband, there will be no problem, no solution, because the same thing would happen with the next one. No? So to change wife or to change husband is not the solution. So forget about it. You're not ready to divorce. Also, you are so busy trying to educate each other that you change love into education. No? You're like parents who keep educating the child and they think that's love. No? So you do the same with your wife and husband. That's very good. So keep going. Come back here. Let's see if by chance you arrive to the third phase. Some people make it. In our statistic, about 17% of the couple do that within the first year. Let's see if you are part of that category. Perhaps you are part of that category. We don't know. Only 17%. That's an invented statistic. But at the same time, to give them the hope that something can change. Always to give an opening. Like von Förster say, your therapy is always to open up choices. So you always talk about, like say, you have a tremendous problem here. You could solve it. There's no problem. We send you to Nardone, no problem. No? And so you give it the hope that something can be solved. But at the same time you say, don't do it now. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And then if they change it, they said, what happened? What happened? He said, nothing happened. You say it's so dangerous. Okay, that's fantastic. I'm so glad it happened to you. But my job as a therapist is to warn you about the danger. No? If you did it, you took a courage. Congratulations, very good. I admire you for doing it. Let's keep trying to see, if something happens, because it's very difficult. Changes are difficult because human beings get, they invent a story that keeps them prisoner of that story. The story becomes so important for them. It becomes the source of their life. So to give up a problem is to change the story of their life, basically. To change their attitude, to change their relationship with everyone. So it takes a lot of work. But if you keep talking about the danger, and so we're here, come to therapy to prevent you from changing, which is very paradoxical. Coming to therapy so we help you not to change. The first time they come to change, you say, we need to do many sessions to prevent you from changing.
Now I want to say another. See, I can't stress enough how important this was to me in our work together, what Gianfranco was talking about. One example that was vivid in my mind, though, that the therapy occurred in 1988, I think, or 9, was a case that I was working on at that time I was at Nova University, and I was the director of the clinic at Nova University's doc family therapy program. And there was this, we had one of the contracts we had meant that we went into homes and did therapy with people who were in emergencies or crises, and so that led to me having a case where there was a woman who was labeled schizophrenic, who was the mother of an 11-year-old daughter who was having trouble in school, and they all lived together with a schizophrenic woman's mother and father in a house in Hollywood, actually, Florida, and it was a wonderful case because the grandfather is a stone alcoholic. The guy's just drunk as drunk as Cooter Brown's, what we used down south where I'm from. He's just drunk all the time, and the mother is equally addicted to religion. She's very addicted to her Bible, and with all deference to Christianity, I'm in no way. It was a part of the dynamic, and it was just. You talk about a multi-difficulty problem family. I started working with them, and at that juncture, I was in love with Jay Haley's strategic approach, and so I was taking a strategic approach principally and getting somewhere. Gianfranco agreed to fly in from Milan to do a consultation with the family, and to see the power, and I hate that word, but to see the positive influence, that's a better phrasing, of the therapy interview that we did with this schizophrenic, allegedly, woman. This is great. This woman's 40 years old, and she would never come out of her room. That was part of the problem. She would never come out of her room at home, except for late at night when everyone was asleep. Then she'd sneak out to get food out of the refrigerator or whatever. And she was in a big struggle with her mother about who was going to be the mother of this 11-year-old, right, who's a star student at school. And she would never come out of her room except every couple of weeks on the weekends when she would sneak out of her bedroom window and hitchhike downtown and prostitute to get money. And then she would drink and have a ball for a weekend, and then she would call her mom, and her mom would go pick her up and bring her home, and she'd spend the next weekend never coming out of her room, right? And Dad you remember this? The dad would never leave house except for he'd go out the back door. He was retired, and there was a strip mall right behind the house, and he'd walk down to this bar and just get sloppy drunk and then walk home, and that was the existence. That was his existence. Mom's praying about it, and everything's going around in circles. It was a wonderful case, and the more we got into it, the more we learned. Turned out in the conversation as we had it in the therapy consultation that Gianfranco did with us. I was aware of this already, but it really came out in the session. One of the reasons why the mom and dad would not take a stance with their she was 39-year-old daughter, was that they had taken a stance with their son. Tough love was a real big thing at that time if you had somebody that was really involved in acting up behavior, in Florida anyway, probably elsewhere. Well, they'd taken a tough stance with this other son who was addicted to crack, right? And so they'd said, no, you can't be in our house if you're going to have the drugs. So they took this stance, they pushed him out of the house. He, in the middle of the night, snuck in the window
and laid down on the couch in the front room and died of an overdose a couple of years earlier. And so to these people, to take a hard stance with your kid meant they could die, yeah? And so anyway, we had this incredible, just a lovely consultation, Milan-style consultation, where Gianfranco was asking these circular questions, and before the interview we had a pre-session talk with all of the, because we had like 40 people on the team, all of the students there at the time were part of the team. And this is when all of these ideas have come up about our own personal prejudices and how those, of the therapists, and how they get involved in what you think you see going on and with the client, and all this started coming up, and it was just a wonderful experience early in our relationship to see to see any number of things, to see that there's any number of ways to peel an apple. Where's my friend? I won't use Gregory Bateson's skin a cat metaphor because it upsets her. There's a lot of ways of peeling an apple that are systemic in orientation, but to get back, and then I'll give back the microphone to my friend here. The absolute stunning effect that can happen when you start telling people who come in the door thinking you think there's something wrong with them. When you begin to convince them by the end of the interview that you not only think there's nothing wrong with them, but there's no other way that they could be but the way they are, and to encourage them not in any way to make any change at all, because it's very good because it protects the viability of the family. It was stunning. That interview was the turnaround, and I can tell you, I've got 12-year follow-up on that case with the alleged schizophrenic who had been allegedly schizophrenic for 20 years, no longer being schizophrenic. And the 11-year-old's grown up and is fine now. And Dad isn't drinking the way he used to. And Mom is still religious, but she's not a nut about it. Anyway, I'm just going to show you my enthusiasm and why I fell in love with Milan version of this, and how privileged I am to be working with you.
Now, if you have if what we said before confuses you or make no sense to you, can you raise your voice and say something?
Yeah, question time.
Please.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I agree with everything. I just want to make some distinctions. It seems to me that everything you're saying fits inside of any one of our interactional models.
Sure.
We all do that. So the distinction I think you're making is that even when we have our interactional models, we may forget, or we may not be holding in our hearts or a way of making it easier to make those interventions.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It means that as a therapist.
It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I'm just asking if that fits what he's saying.
So it fits in the sense that you have to exercise all the time, to keep up this kind of attitude, this kind of attitude towards a client, towards a system. It's very difficult.
They didn't understand
And the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Repeat her statement.
No, he said
Franco.
that what I said fits different models of interactional therapy, But no. But sometimes we forget our position, in relation to the client, and we can get lost, into some form of prejudices. You didn't say that, but that's what I meant. You meant, I think, that we get involved. We forget about what we are thinking, our prejudices we have around, and we fall into some traps of some kind, which fits perfectly what I'm trying to say, which is that we need a continuous exercise to keep your mind ready for everything, because we are full of prejudices. And the question is, how can we be aware of them? How can we make use of them instead of becoming damaging to the client? The confrontation between the prejudice of the family, your prejudice, that's part of therapy. but we need the constant exercise. That's why I'm saying also to students, they say, what do we do when we work alone? They said, if you are alone, it's very little dangerous, no? Because if you are alone, you begin to believe in what you say after a while. No?
Right.
You begin to believe what you think. Especially when you get older, then you become even bigger believer. I have such an experience. Obviously, I know better than others. And you believe you know. And so you need once in a while to go meet some colleagues or some people and have a nice discussion, or invite people to talk about cases. So you have to participate to a group. So the continuous conversation with colleagues and with the family, is very important. We have behind the mirror, we have a long discussion. Sometimes we ask the family, very often, we say, do you want to hear the discussion behind the mirror? Some families say yes. Okay, if you come, as long as you don't talk. And then you come, and then I tell the student, can you sit around and look at each other? Never look at the family when you talk. Because when you talk, you look at somebody, it's like asking an answer. Right? Don't look at them, just talk. Try to talk about everything without using negative statements, blame statements. No? And usually they're very good. They become more intelligent in front of the family. The group, yeah. The group become more intelligent, they understand better because they make an effort. But this exercise has to be continuous. If you're alone, you get lost. I know some therapists, like in Milano, they live alone and they have some group of patients. Sometimes I see some patients, I see this person must be a patient of my colleague there. No? Because all the patients look the same. The therapists look like the patient. They create a community, right? Therapists and patients, they're all the same. They all believe in the same theory. And they talk to each other. So I have this colleague, sometimes he sends me some patient with a wife because he sees the patient individually. And I know if they come, I have a big problem with them because they always bring back, my doctor said so. My doctor said the other thing. He didn't say that. There is a competition between what I'm doing and the other doctor. No? They have to defend his position. I try to defend him, but it's an individual position. And his thinking, the thinking of the patient is the same thinking as the therapist. So that's how you see the danger somehow. That's why therapy should be always talking to colleagues. We are lucky to have students. Those students, especially first-year students, people who don't know anything about therapy, and they are fantastic. No? People who know too much about therapies, probably they confuse you. People who don't know anything, they come out with very simple statements. They clear up your mind about what's going on. So it's very useful to have always some confrontation. So the circularity is perfect. Like the family, then there is a therapist, then there is a group behind the mirror who talks to the therapist, then there is an observing group who talks to the group behind the mirror, and then the family talks about the group. So there is a total circularity.
Gianfranco's reminded me about one of the many conversations we've had about the danger of believing yourself, believing that you think you've realized how to do these things, because then you have the pride, the hubris that gets involved in that, and it stifles conversation. And the way and the free one way of addressing that is students. Students come in and they ask questions that no one would think to ask because they're and if you're open to hear it, it shakes up your whole fiction that you know what you're talking about. It's great. We wrote a book about this. It's called The Cybernetics of Prejudices in the Practice of Psychotherapy, and which should have been the first book. It was the second one. The first one was Irreverence. If you're interested in those, in your booklet or your handout of stuff, there's this MRI thing. You can order them. Just want to put a pitch in.
You are a salesman. You became a salesman now.
And you just dropped your cigarette.
Okay.
Oh my God, that's dangerous.
There was one question down there. There was one person who raised a hand. Yes. No, the third phase is to find the interest in the other person, the way how the other person is, not how the other person should be. You find the interest in the quality that perhaps you never saw before, because in the psychotic phase, you never see the quality. All the quality are in your head. You are sculpting the other person. You are inventing the other person. No? So it's not real. The third phase, the person become real. It become interesting the way the other person is. They have some quality. And usually, if you find interest in that quality, then they come out more. They come out better also, because of the phenomenon of positive connotation. No? If you admire the other person, then the person becomes better. No? But then, as an intervention, you say only 17% of the people reach that phase. No? Many people divorce before they try it again, and they get in the same trouble again. No? No, many people die before in this battle. Some people survive, some people die. No? some people become widower. I mean, many things. No, people who reach that point. Our statistic is 17%. No? The other people divorce or die in the battle. No, or they become schizophrenic in the battle. No. When you cannot convince your wife to be a good wife, you choose to go to a mental hospital or something like that. No? That's a solution. You have different solutions. So by talking like that, you make the story interesting for them. No? And also, it's a kind of humor into it. No? Then you can play with it. Oh no, say, did your husband do anything you like this week? No? You find anything interesting what he did? Okay, something.
And then you can chastise them if they say yes.
Okay, very interesting. So what is it? No? And then this lady once, she said, okay, he did that and that. I liked that. It was good. No, it was nice. And then this man got furious. He said, you see what a wife I have? She's happy about these stupid things. For me, for me to do these stupid things was so superficial. Look how idiotic wife I have. You see what she wants from her husband? No, she should expect something more from me, something more important. No? I am a genius. I am very important. She's very superficial. You see, she's happy that I took down the garbage or something like that. Very idiotic. So he complained that she was saying something nice. So then I went back to the same story. Okay, very good. He's trying to keep up the battle about changing each other. So it's very important. You're not ready to go in the third phase. So keep going. I see you next week. Don't forget to pay the check, however. Because I can say, this waiting and waiting costs you some money, right? Any questions?
I also want to say something, though, that this is the nuance of positive connotation, and the beauty of it is that, you know, if you're always been able, and Gianfranco is very adept at this, many good therapists are. Fish is another one that's, the moment somebody falls in love with this half of a dichotomy, they automatically point out the other, you know? It's because if you think in terms of, I don't want to get too theoretical on you, but this is magnificent. Gianfranco does it like breathing. So does Dick, you know? Somebody starts falling in love with this, suddenly they're seeing the other side and pointing it out, you know? And this is a beautiful thing. And anyway, I wanted to point it out here. And that and connect it to positive connotation, which is, I think, a beautiful way of turning inside out people's experience of what's happening.
So because, I mean, you can see from experience that when a system is feeling a sense of sickness, or there is a so-called sick member, usually the level of blame is very high. No? There's a lot of blame. People blame the other person. It's more simple. Or you blame the history, you blame the genes, you blame the race you belong to, you blame the place, the job. Blaming something. So the level of blame is very high. Usually blame is very good in keeping a system from moving.
Yes.
Blame is a good system, a good way or human being find to stop system from moving, from growing up. Probably if there is no blame, if there was no blame in the world, it would be too dangerous somehow. life would be too fast.
Love each other. Oh my
We love-
God.
Everybody love each other. Everything works. It's impossible. There are only a few places where this thing happens temporarily. Then blame comes in, stops everything. So we have also to appreciate the value of blame. No? For example, I can say like a couple. You have 2 children, fantastic. You have the mother-in-law who comes to interfere every day. No? Looking for outside, it would be very simple for you to fire the mother-in-law. Or to go to living in another town, not to use her house. You offer you the house, of course, you have to spend some more money to live. But can you do it? Probably the fact that every day you receive a blame from her, no? Probably keeps you good, keeps you going. Probably you'll be too happy. You're not ready to that, no? Probably your friends will be upset. No, your colleague, and then she said, my sister will be upset. This lady, because the sister, who is not married, who is a kind of nasty woman, she doesn't want her sister to be a happy married woman. That's very clear. So very good. So this blame is very good to keep the system stop, because now if you move, you become really happy. Perhaps your sister commits suicide. That's terrible. Stay where you are. Get a dose of blame every day. No? Can you write down? Can you write down every day? You can organize. You can say, I can take a blame only between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning. You can organize your life to protect yourself, but the blame is necessary. So you can play with these kind of ideas, no? And to give them with some kind of humor the fact that blame is very important. And they also they were looking for it. No? A very important thing in therapy is, like we said many times, that people should become the master of their own life. No? No, if your mother-in-law blames, you are the one who's looking for the blame. You are the master. You are the one who do it, who does it. You're not the one who are the victim of the initiative of somebody else. So there's a whole theory, how to make people part of a drama. No? Everybody lives a drama, lives a story. Everybody is an actor in the drama. Everybody is an actor as important as another actor. Apparently, there is a persecutor and a victim. But for the drama point of view, everybody is acting. No? Everybody is responsible for their position, no matter what. This doesn't sound very politically correct.
This is a tough question. When I imagine on a world stage, let's say you as a therapist between the leader from the Palestinians and the Israelis, what's the information that you as the therapist willing to take responsibility for the outcome? What would be the intervention, the way you'd approach it?
The first thing is,
Repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
the question is, if they ask me to be there
The
and
mediator
to,
between Palestine and Israel.
Therapist.
So you're the mediator, or you call the therapist, but in world negotiations, a mediator between Palestine, the Palestinians, and the Israelis, and taking into account the idea that the therapist is accountable and responsible for outcome, basically. How does that fit? How would you address some big deal issue like that?
What's the intervention?
What's the intervention?
What's the position?
What's the position?
here we have a,
I'm carrying this to an extreme.
but here we have
Why
a,
not?
How
let's-
do you say it's okay to keep it the way it is because it could be worse? As
no, but for example, here we have a
Just
problem.
simple one like Palestine and Israel.
That there is nobody, no Palestine, no Israel, they would ask for a mediator. No, they don't ask for it because they are stuck in the war, in the battle. They prefer the battle than to ask for a mediator. It's like a couple who like to fight and they don't want to go to therapy. If they go into therapy, it's because the child gets sick or because some consequence.
How come the US
Can you
is
bring the
involved?
world in as the family, some representative of the world as the family saying, these are the children, we gotta fix them.
Yes, but this family does not exist, right? Where is this family? They can take that responsibility. Now, the family doesn't take a responsibility because Palestinians, they have their family, the Arab country, were on their side. Israel, they have United States on their side. No, United States doesn't want to be mediator; wants to be only one
Put
side.
in that position.
Eh?
Supposedly they are mediating.
Supposedly, but they are not. Why they keep? They prefer to fight all the time.
So I don't know why you don't apply your own model and first as the therapist with these clients, you just say, okay, so we go through the psychotic stage of thinking we can do something, and then the middle stage is, well, you know, it looks like you just aren't ready for change. This is serving a purpose. I think you need to keep on doing this, because if you would change, it would make the world too much of a livable place, and the world's just not ready.
Yeah, but we have if we had authority, we can use the same method we use with families. Like, if you have a couple who are killing each other and throwing knives to each other, no, what do? You send the police, you separate them violently, right? You put them in jail, one or the other, right? So now this kind of police for them does not exist. That's one thing.
The model may be a little different because they didn't start by falling in love.
But their history.
I don't want to belabor, I really didn't want to belabor it. What I was really suggesting that to look, I don't expect we're gonna solve it, but what I was,
Thank God.
but what I was really
Can I say what?
suggesting
Yeah, I understand. I'm
was
sorry.
to look at the system and to see what we're unable to do in the system. as a
Okay,
whole.
for example, let me say one thing. For example, you can say, you Palestinian, Israeli, we have like little children, no? Because you say, I change if you change, no? So the Palestinians said, we stop doing our attack if Israel doesn't do their settlements. Then the Israelis say, we stop the settlement if you stop doing. So you say, you are like little children in a nursery school, no? You say, I don't do my thing if my friend doesn't do it. Usually, when you get into this battle, usually you ask the teacher to intervene, no, in the nursery school, to say, stop the fighting, now I make a decision. This kind of teacher does not exist for these two children, no? So we can say, the intervention will be, you are too childish, you are totally out of your mind. You are,
wait, I wanna-
and now we need the intervention of another authority, an outsider. That's the solution.
Wait, because I want to say something too. This is a very complex, needless to say, a complex scenario or question that you raise. One of the really good things that happened I think it was the early 90s or late 80s. I think it was late 80s. It was a book that came out entitled Arabs and Jews. It won a Pulitzer Prize. I don't remember the author's name. In it, the nice thing that author did was he did a history of the relationship of the Palestinians and the Jews, and he won a Pulitzer Prize for it. And on both sides, one of the amazing instances where there was agreement was that both felt it was a well done beginning of looking at this. Now, why do I bring this book up and I can't remember the author's name? Because for me, how he approached talking about this very complex scenario resonates with my understanding of the Milan approach and how they go back and they bring the family, not always, but almost always. You begin to contextualize this thing that people are calling a difficulty in the present moment in terms of the relationships between people over generations of time, in a way of saying of using that to help all people back off of feeling blamed or the desire to blame others. Anyway, I wanted to make the point that there have been actually pretty good starts of ways to address that kind of complex difficulty using what in effect are the systemic points of view.
One second. First.
What happens if there's a risk of life when you ask a patient to keep it from, for example, women, anorexic protective system from her father's alcoholic? Because I've seen it a lot. And, for example, there's a real risk of life.
summarize the question?
No. No, the question is, what do you do? How can you recommend to keep the problem when there is a danger for life? Is that the question, basically? No, but here we have to agree. Human beings are fantastic. They can create systems which are very nice, very happy, a system which are violent to each other. That's the ability of human beings. You agree with that? So we can create couple who are very happy, a couple who just hate each other, they are dangerous to each other. You can have diseases, they are dangerous for survival. Society invented a system to intervene when people exaggerate in their behavior. If a couple becomes too dangerous to each other, then you intervene with the police, with the mental hospital. When a schizophrenic begins to break everything up, you lock him up, right? If a girl wants to die, you see she's dying, you bring her to the hospital, you give her IV. You don't talk about you want to be sick or not. You give an intervention, physical intervention, to keep the person alive. Society organized themselves to take care of this exaggeration of human beings. Human beings kill each other. Society tries to stop it, or punish the people who does it. So I don't see anything. If a girl is there in bed, she's dying of anorexia, you don't think about you should keep being anorectic. You send her to the hospital, you give her medication until she gets some weight. Then later you can begin to talk. Then you can ask the question, you said, why you compel me to save your life? You want to die at any cost, Why you compel me to do this terrible job? I don't like to save lives of people. I like to talk to people, not to save the life. Why you compel me to do it? Why is it so important to you for you to be always on the verge of dying? Why do you have this idea? What happened? And then you create a story. Then you find out. You have a story. Usually there is a story why this person wants to die. That makes sense. Then you can use that. And then sometimes you say, okay, now I understand. You want to keep your parents. Your parents, they believe you only if you're dead. But when you are dead, they usually for them to believe you. Right? You are in a big paradox. My parents listen to me only if I die. But when you're dead, why do you need your parents to listen? So what do we do now? We have a big paradox here.
I wanted just to say something about the Israeli-Palestinian question. Because one of the problems for me is when we use tools which are working very well for two persons in a system of two persons with a larger context. There are no Israelis and no Palestinians. There are different groups in the Palestinians. You have Hamas, who will never accept an Israeli state. Jihad, never. Fatah, perhaps. On the Israeli side, you have people who are accepting completely a Palestinian state in the borders of 67, and people who will never accept that. So already you don't have Israelis and Palestinians, you have different kind of Israelis and different kind of Palestinians. But it's clear that the system is functioning in a way where more and more becoming homogenized. More and more Israelis find themselves confronted to people who are treating them in a way where they are treating the others. So they are reinforcing their worldviews, that no one is accepting the other. But luckily for us, they are not all the same. So perhaps if you speak in terms of intervention, then it will be with whom can you ally so that change can happen. And then you cannot speak just about to Israelis or to Palestinians, is with whom can you ally with the Palestinians, with whom can you ally with Israelis, so that they can do something. In fact, in 1968, I created with Jean-Paul Sartre committees that we called Israel-Palestine committees, which were existing all over Europe, in the States, and in Israel. At that time, there were no Arabs in these committees. And we were defending in 1968 the idea of two states, Israel and Palestine, which at that time was not obvious. And it didn't. People began to move, but not that much. And then, when the situation was ripe, we saw how these ideas began to be accepted by the majority. Now there is a regression. But it's interesting to see anyway that the systemic approach works very well, but we have to accept to modify the approach to take into account the complexity of the situation.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Right.
Thank you. I think it's time for lunch.
Oh,
We didn't finish.
Are we done? 12 noon? Yeah.
thank you.
We had another question.
Turn it off.
Finish?
I'm gonna go get them one more time. We're about to enter the last part of the second day, and it's been a delight for me. I hope it has been for you as well. At the end of all of this, in your packet, there's an evaluation form, and I would like you to know that we failed to mention on here that 5 is the high end. So if you really liked certain things, then a 5 is good and 1 is very bad. And so just so that we're all on the same page in terms of our interpretation, there's that. But it's a very minor thing. One more thing before we go to the very special event that we're about to have occur. It is very true that organizations involve a lot of people working hopefully together and sometimes not. But there's some people that have really just been vitally important to the fact that this conference has been a success. And the two that I particularly want to mention that have been intimately involved in every aspect of this, but done in such a way that they're behind the scenes and no one even knows about them, are Corinne Goldman and Milton Goldman. And honestly, this conference wouldn't have occurred. We wouldn't have had this facility. It wouldn't have run as smoothly. The booklet that this was produced, all of that is a product of Milton and Corinne Goldman's hard work. And so please join me in thanking Corinne. And Milton got tired and went home. I wish he would have been here. Now I apologize. Now that just took a moment. It's an incredible pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker. Giorgio Nardone has been the representative for the Mental Research Institute in Italy for years, for a long time. He is the author of how many? 5 more? How many books? So many books I lose
16.
count. 16. My God, 16 books. He has done just an incredible job of representing us throughout Europe, and it is with the greatest of pleasure and honor for me to introduce to you our next speaker, Giorgio Nardone.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Okay. As I wrote in the booklet, I was still a young epistemologist when arrived for the first time at MRI. And this experience made me shift completely for the philosophy of science to the psychotherapy. When I have seen for the first time Paul Watzlawick, John Wickland, I understood for the first time the statement of Gregory Bateson. There is nothing so practical than a good theory. So, for me, started a new life. I still have vivid in my mind, oh yeah, okay, the image of John saying no while nodding yes. I can speak about Paul because we have shared 15 years of collaboration. So, seems to me there are 2 ways to celebrate our master. One is to repeat themselves, okay? The other is to evolve the work of our masters and to demonstrate that they were for us the starting point. I choose the second way. So let me introduce my work and let me present briefly what we have evolved in Italy at the Center of Strategic Therapy since 15 years of experimental and empirical research about the solution of specific forms of psychopathologies. Let me start with an introduction to the direct application of constructivistic theory in therapy. I would like to give you 3 buckets in front of you. Fill one with very hot water, one with very cold water. Then I will ask to you, please put your right hand in one and the left hand in the other. Then I put in front of you a third bucket with a lukewarm water. And then I ask you, please put together your right and left hand in the lukewarm water. You will have a really upsetting experience. Because for the right hand will be really cold, for the other one really hot. So 2 different experiences from the same brain. But what is relevant for us as a therapist, that in the first case we need to add cold water. In the second case we have to add hot water. So for me, from my perspective, this is the best introduction for the explanation how constructivistic perspective is the base of brief strategic therapy. Because we need to make a person change perception and reaction toward reality to guide him to new real experiences, capable to change his perspective and so his reaction. So this is the first statement. The second relevant statement from my perspective is the fact that for my point of view, what can describe a problem is all its solution. We know the problem by its solution. So we need to describe problems before pinpointing effective solution for the problem. Let me show you another practical example, and is very nice because it works another time with buckets of water. Let me ask you to solve just a little problem. I propose you 2 buckets of 9 liters or 9 gallons, is same, okay? The other with the capacity of 4 liters or 4 gallons. It's the same, okay? So let me. Now, let's go to the river and carry up to me just precisely 6 liters or 6 gallons a day. How can you solve this problem? You have a bucket of 9 liters and a bucket of 4 liters. Okay. You like to save exactly 6 liters. 6 gallons. Okay, what is important for me is that each problem are defined by its solution as most part of the pathologies that the patients carry to us to solve. It's more simple than pure. Okay, you go here and fill the 4 liters bucket. Okay. Then the water in the bucket, the big one, and so I have 4 liters. Okay. Then again fulfill the 4 liters bucket, and okay, again this one. Okay. Then you have to put it this one, okay? Have to oh, sorry, I didn't see. Yeah, we have to start from the head. So it's really nice because this kind of problem, when you can to we try to repeat. You make mistake. You have to reason about. Okay. Okay. Let's move. The first move. Sorry. To fulfill 9 liters. Okay. Need to fulfill it. Okay. Then you fulfill with 4 liters. This one. Okay. Then you put the one and fulfill again and put up again. And you have obtained 1 liter. It's the reducer of quantity. Because to the problem, you need a container of 3 liters. You know? So, you put 1 liter in 4 liters. You have 1 liters. And you have a empty of 3 liters. So, you have to fulfill again 9 liters. Okay? Yeah? And 4 liters here. You have 6 liters. Simple. Simple. It's not complicated. It's complicated if you start your reason from the first point. What I am introducing now is a basic concept of my model. The starting point is not the starting point, but the end point. Or, in other words, the objective to be reached. We can construct the solution fitted to the problem if we start our strategy thinking about what will be the point at it I have obtained the solution to the problem. So in this example, if you start from the need to find out 6 liters, your mind will confuse. If you think, what is the first before the solution is to have 3 liters. So your strategy will be not to go toward 6 liters, but straightforward toward 3 liters. And simple solution arrived. So this is the basic concept that has guided my work for 15 years. Concentrate my attention on pinpointing solution for specific kind of problem, studying the specific form or persistence of the problems. In Bayesian words, the redundancy of the structure of the problems. And when you have pinpointed how a problem maintains itself and is of specific attempted solutions, you can set up a specific kind of solution capable to break up the dysfunctional balance of this system. And in this case, when the well, you have an explanation of this means its solution. And the concept can drive us to establish not only a simple tactic or a simple maneuver, but a whole model, a whole sequence of tactics, maneuvers within an entire strategy constructed on the basis of the goal to reach and not on the basis of the theory to respect. Don't forget, in the mathematical logic exists a specific logic named state logic. And its first concept is that the model are built on the basis of the objective to reach and not on the basis of the theory to respect. So, if you put together, as I made 15 years ago in my first project about the treatment of phobia and obsessive compulsive pathologies, put together is mathematical logic tradition with ML tradition, the reducer complexity and solution. Put together these two really different traditions, you are able to construct a real effective model therapy, both creative and systematic. So, the other real point of my work was to devote a lot of time to empirical research, not only theoretical, but construct a model to apply directly to hundreds of patients, specific protocols of treatment set up, and then measures the real effectiveness, and on the basis of the outcome and the decision or not of the outcomes to correct the model. And this is a really painstaking work because you spend a lot of time to experiment, a lot of time to measure, a lot of time to think about how to change and make better your strategy. And you need a lot of patience to work them. This work in the first project drive me to publish many articles and 5 books about specific protocol treatment. The first one, project successful project, it was about phobic and obsessive compulsive disorders. And the big suggestion is that the most efficacious and the most efficient model now here exists. 87% of solved cases in a median duration of therapy of 7 sessions is measured in many hundreds of cases, now thousands of cases. This first project lead me and my collaborators because at the starting point I work by own. Then arrived students, scholars. Now in Italy we have 45 brief strategy therapists affiliated to Center Register in Arezzo. Each one of them has a project to carry on. We meet together each month and we discuss about the project, discuss about the difficult cases. So from the first project to the actual project, there are really differences because now I am not working alone. A lot of people around me help me, and I help them to carry the project. We have, after the first project, applied the same methodology to eating disorders. Eating disorders is really difficult pathologies, and working in the same way, we have obtained not so different results. Then we applied this project to other kind of pathologies. We have here collaborators of mine that participated to the project to study the family system in European culture. Is the last project finished? So we are working by technology on several different kind of problems. But the basic point is we are always moving on the basis of the constructivistic model, on the basis of strategic logic, on the basis of MRI construct. We have added the concept that the solution describes the problem, and the problem described by its solution. For example, we have changed in our application about phobia, obsessive disorders, and eating disorders the specific diagnosis of DSM-4, because DSM as the most part of diagnostic and statistical work are based on long-term research, but until will be published usually past 10 years. And usually what described is really different than the actual pathologies. And first of all, and above all, the DSM are based on a stable imaging as a photography of the pathology. don't describe the dynamic of pathology, while our knowledge about the pathology functions are on base of the solution that have solved this problem. So it's an private knowledge can describe the dynamic of the pathology, not only the image. So it's the difference between and the movie. And this operative knowledge can drive the therapist to choose the way to solve the problem. Because the description of the problem derives from the solution that have solved that kind of problem in many, many cases. Let me boring you again with the methodology, but seems to me really relevant and seems to me contribute to celebrate my masters, because you know one of the worst therapy, it was for many years that brief therapy and interactional therapy are superficial therapy, because it's so brief that can be so deep. Okay, but instead the things that's really different. So model based on empirical experimental research and following evaluation of the outcomes, a criteria international renowned give us the possibility to demonstrate the effective validity of the model impacts. In all my books, in all my articles, there are a part devoted to the measurement of the efficacy and effectiveness, showing how the model works really, and how the model are not superficial, are not automatic maquillage, but it's really a change, not in the behavior of the person, but in the perception of the person, as in the case that I have shown to you about the 3 baths and warm and cold water. You make the patient experience new construction of what? So the change, it's radical, not superficial. To work this way, we have established a specific methodology. When we start to see the solution of a specific kind of problem, treatment of particular pathology, we start to hypothesize some kind of maneuvers, tactics, strategy, in the most case similar to other well-known, well-experienced protocols that we have. Then, applying to the problem, we fit steps by steps the intervention to the problem, using continuously the self-correcting measurement and adaptation. Usually, we need to have one case experimented with 3% almost of the full infections to define a strategy, a good protocol. In the most cases, our tactics are over 80%. Actually, the second criteria is that we need to be capable to obtain this result in less than 20 sessions, because 20 sessions is the limit for us that define brief therapy from the other for therapy. Usually, in all our projects, the efficiency showed is less than 10 sessions, as I told before. The third criteria is that is kind of model must to be used by different persons, not only by one master, because in this case it's not model, is a person's ability to treat people. So we are entering the protocols in all the in very different masters. As the USA is Michelin's of the okay. When you read a person country the northeast of Italy is quite different than the person from Sicily. Okay, it's very different culture. So you need continuously to the protocol treatment. The fourth criteria that the model to be really has to be capable to produce change that in the time, not for and then the past relapse. So we are using to make a follow-up 6 months, 1 year after the end of therapies. In this case, now we are arrived on 5 years for the end of therapy. And the last, but for me, the fifth criteria is that for me is the first because of my logical and philosophical tradition, is the capability of the model to be predictable. In other words, when you apply it, you have predict in not more than 2 or 3 will this chess game you and you try to predict the counter move and you try to predict the next counter move. So you can correct your intervention not only from starting point to end point, but during the process. And these criteria make a difference between a traditional model of brief therapy and the old model of therapy. Because in this case, you can always control the effect of your maneuvers, and you can avoid to produce bad things to patients. Don't forget, 40% of patients coming from therapy are worsened their pathology, not make better it. Okay, so excuse me for this boring methodological explanation, but seems to me really relevant to my pick, because in a way you can means really badly what I am not to present you. Some nice example, okay? So